And they build it into the complex justifications that keep people stuck in these relationships. Because, hey, love means giving everything and expecting nothing, in which case every narcissistic relationship must seem like a winner. We're going to talk about two things. One thing we're going to talk about is, what is Valentine's Day? Why is this such a treacherous day for people who have dealt with or are dealing with narcissistic abuse? And two, good Valentine's Day question, what does I love you mean to a narcissist? Because a lot of people say, how could he say I love you and do the things he did? Let's unpack both of those. We'll take a little glimpse at Valentine's Day. I am a romantic cynic. I don't really believe in it. I've got kids, so over the years it's always been a joy to get them sweets and little gifts and things like that. But as a romantic holiday, it's always been lost on me. It sort of feels commercial and I get cynical. But the fact is, a lot of people do get a lot of joy out of it, and I get it. This is a particularly good Valentine's Day for me this year because I'm going to spend it with my mom. And so that's very meaningful to me, someone whom I love dearly. But that said, why Valentine's Day so deeply affects people who've been through narcissistic relationships, there's a couple of key issues. Number one, if you've ever gone through the love bombing stage at Valentine's Day, forget about it. They love putting on a full court press, no matter what their budget is at Valentine's Day. If they got a lot of cash, expect lots of overpriced flowers, the table at the Impossible restaurant, and other kinds of opulent, over-the-top gifts. If you think back to that love bomby Valentine's Day, it can make some of the other ones, in retrospect, pale in comparison, but it also kind of contaminated the holiday, didn't it? Now let's take a look at the other thing that happens on Valentine's Day with narcissists. Many times, they disappoint. Think about all the series we did over the holidays, Christmas and Thanksgiving, New Year's, all of that. Narcissists tend to ruin special days. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, you name it. Part of it is that it's almost like they can't endure someone else having joy. And a couple of things can go wrong on Valentine's Day. Number one, that expectation really rattles their insecurity. Sometimes they feel like they can't deliver, but more often than not, their contempt for you has reached such a level that they can't be bothered to do anything on this day. Even if it's something simple as a card or a handwritten letter, that's often more than enough for most people. If you dare complain to the narcissist about feeling like, you know, couldn't you have remembered it? Couldn't you have even sent me a text that said Happy Valentine's Day? You get the whole verbal diarrhea of how dare you, you're so ungrateful, what's wrong with you, you're the narcissist, and the list goes on. So for many people, this strange day when so-called love is in the air can be a very, very evocative, triggering time. So let's talk about love. When it comes to narcissism, love is indeed a four-letter word. I would say one of the questions I get most often, especially from people who are in sort of the final death march of the narcissistic relationship, is they don't love me. Nobody who loves someone does X or Y. Now here's where we get into a tricky space. Narcissists say I love you all the time. Many of you are in relationships where you heard, I love you from the narcissist. And then they went on to do terrible things. They would lie, they would cheat, they would gaslight, they would invalidate, they would insult, they would disrespect. You're like, ooh, this doesn't feel like what I thought love would feel like. And I'd imagine, obviously, in a classical definition, it's not. But love is a funny word, a bit like hot or cold. It's relative. And I'd like to think that love, in my book, is unconditional, compassionate, respectful, kind, giving, present, joyful. That's my definition, and that's what I try to bring to the table. And I say, I love you. It's a recognition of all of that. You got to be clear on your definitions. When a narcissist says, I love you, in normal person speak, that often means, I'm convenienced by you. It means, thanks for bringing me supply. It could mean, thanks for validating me. It could also mean, hey, thanks for sticking around no matter what I do. Loving the supply, and they don't even see it as unconditional love. In some ways, they'd say, hey, thanks for giving me what I was already supposed to get in the first place. that may not be what you think love is. I've always argued, and I argue this in both of my books, I kind of wish at the beginning of a relationship, we exchange pieces of paper and we say, could you tell me what your definition of love is so I'm clear on what you mean when you say I love you? You should almost do that with yourself. What does love mean to you? But here's where it gets tricky. Do you really think a narcissist is going to sit there and say, yeah, to me love means validation seeking and fluffing and needing lots of attention and supply and all that? They're not going to cop to that. They're going to think that their definition is the same as yours. So what does love mean to a narcissist? It means exactly what I said. It means validation. It means admiration. It means that you're a convenience. It means that you make them look good and fortify their image to the world. It's the reason many times narcissists will choose partners that are much younger than them, much more attractive than them, much more wealthy or powerful than them, if they can. Or they choose a partner they can overpower, someone who doesn't have nearly the power as them, doesn't have the resources as them. So they either want to control or they want to shine. But you're merely a source of narcissistic supply. That's what love means to them. It can be very painful when you realize that, because a lot of people said, well, he loves me, so this can't be happening. And I want to say to them, sweetie, it's happening. And so pay attention. Don't get lost in those three very dangerous words, I love you. When they're spoken with the true spirit, they're actually three of the most beautiful words in any language. Whether you say them to a partner, a spouse, your child, a friend, or a parent. Any human relationship, when it comes from that good place and the person receives it and returns it in kind, we all know there's no richer human experience. Sadly, for many of us, it was a relationship with a narcissist where that experience got co-opted, where what we believed what love once was, authentic, giving, unconditional, and kind, gets broken. On this Valentine's Day, I really want to make you a promise. Every year, I see thousands of stories, and I hear them, and I talk to people who experience them, of people who do find true love after narcissistic abuse. Sometimes it's romantic love. Quite often, it's a love for themselves. They open themselves to new opportunities. They take chances. I just recently heard about a woman who went through a horrific narcissistic abuse experience. And then she used that as an opportunity to finally go see places in the world she could never see when she was in a controlling relationship. And the new courage helped her feel strong enough that when he tried to hoover her back, she said, hell no. That's what I wish for all of you on Valentine's Day. A love story, whether that involves someone else or yourself, because everyone deserves that kind of authentic, unconditional love. And one thing that narcissistic relationship does is it takes it away. It's there. Stop looking in the wrong place for it. Narcissistic individuals don't view love the same way. Sadly, it's a really, really damaged space for them. My heart actually aches for them, because to miss out on a true, deep, compassionate, authentic love is to miss out on honestly what is the single most powerful part of the human experience. If anything, look at the narcissist in your life. Don't try to win them over. Don't try to teach them your definition of love. If anything, look upon them with sadness and some compassion. Make sure you back out of the door so you don't get sucked back in. Recognize that love starts with you. And even though you left that relationship feeling like you're not enough, on this day that's supposed to be about love, Valentine's Day, I want you to go out and buy, if you want to buy yourself those flowers or that card or whatever it is, it needs to start with you. Please take your life back, whether it's from a family of origin where you were told you weren't enough, whether it's from the heartache of a narcissistic relationship where you again got conditioned to this idea that your love wasn't good enough. Whatever place that came from, please make me the promise that this will be the year you take it back. That, to me, would make Valentine's Day worth it. So, as always, I wish you whatever happy day you're having, but more than anything, go out there and kill it on this Valentine's Day. And do me a favor, will you drop me a comment and tell me what you did on this Valentine's Day? You already know what I'm doing it. I'm spending it with my mom. It's just going to be a joy to be there with her. And I don't know what, do something naughty like eat a whole box of chocolate ourselves. So whatever you're doing, and that's mine, please share yours. And I want to hear that narcissistic abuse doesn't take your Valentine's Day away. And today's proverb is, all's fair in love and war. Okay, so let's reflect on this one. All's fair in love and war. Is it? This proverb has its origins, I think, in a poem from the 1500s, so it's been around a while. Actually kind of excuses bad behavior in romantic relationships. And narcissistic folks, oh boy, do they ever run with the ball of this old proverby wisdom. When something like this proverb that is so embedded in our thinking about love and war is in line with other stupid sayings like love makes people crazy, so then they do stupid things and make the crazy as a defense. No! That all of these kinds of proverbs and things like that can leave people feeling like these relationships are the wild, wild west, so everything is permissible in these relationships because it's love. Well, let me tell you this. Narcissistic people are notoriously unfair in relationships. They cheat, they lie, they often do a bait and switch, they manipulate, they blame you for things that you are not responsible for. So, these relationships, by definition, are not fair. The love bombing can make these relationships feel like passionate love affairs, and it's easy to fall into the morass of all's fair in love because the entire thing feels like a massive roller coaster. It really is amazing how many of these proverbs are really just enabling and excuse narcissistic behavior. It almost seems like it's 50-50. Now, war is a different story, right? By definition, war often is not fair, but even so, there are many things that can happen in a way that really aren't fair, right? Like attacking and harming civilians. And since most people who love war are narcissistic, you can pretty much bet that war obviously isn't fair either. But so why is it? Why is it so difficult for narcissistic people to play fair? Forget love and war. Even in day-to-day life, they can't. And their entitlement is a part of it. Rules are a headache for them. And it really frustrates them when they have to follow rules. Antagonistic people are oppositional, so rules don't work for them, and they cannot play fair. They cheat at everything. Taxes, work, business, relationships, whatever matters to them. But unfortunately, this mentality that if something matters and there's strong emotion involved, then the passion means that sometimes it's not fair. Love and war, right? I have talked with many survivors of narcissistic abuse who, in the anger and rage and frustration, and above all the injustice, will say to the narcissist about whatever happened, it's not fair. And in all cases, they said that the narcissistic person fired back with, life's not fair. I could almost buy that as an answer, except for the fact that the narcissists out there have a hypocrisy about fairness. They expect it for themselves, but do not feel that it should be granted to anyone else or that they don't deserve it. So back to the all's fair in love bit. They may use that as a defense for their behavior, but for any reason you were unfair to them in love, forget about it. With the vindictiveness that would follow, let me tell you, it would feel like war. And once again, all's fair in war to them probably as well. All's not fair in love. It just isn't. It's not fair to invalidate someone or cheat on someone or lie to someone or silence someone's spirit or gaslight them or future fake them or minimize them. It's not. But according to this proverb, if all's fair in love, then that sort of feels like a sign-off on this behavior. Again, we too often view the passion and the emotion and the fervor of love as a place where rules don't apply, but they actually do. Healthy, well-regulated people behave fairly in love, no matter how passionate it is. The fates and the vagaries of life, a storm that can wipe away a house, an illness that takes a young person's life, wealth inequality, a person being born to a narcissistic parent. All of those are pretty damn good examples of life being unfair. But a person who chooses not to regulate themselves and who is entitled and arrogant and narcissistically abusing someone, to me, that doesn't fall under what's all's fair in love. That falls under emotional abuse. It's a choice, and it's not just unfair, it's wrong. We give too much of a free pass to the behavior that happens within a close relationship. The idea that all relationships are oh so different and we can't really know what's happening in a relationship because we aren't in it, and there are so many different kinds of relationships. I'm not buying that nonsense. There is a healthy way a relationship can be, and there is an unhealthy way. So no, all is not fair in love. And this proverb has been misused so many times for people who will say, oh, golly, poor her, her relationship ended, all's fair in love and war, I guess. No, 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 it's not. Healthy people have healthy rules, communication, boundaries, respect, mutuality, and compassion in their relationships. That's all being fair in love. Anything different than that? Not so much. Okay, so here's a doozy, folks. Love is about giving everything and expecting nothing. Tell me that's not the motto of every narcissistic relationship. I'm Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to the Almighty Proverbs series. I gotta tell you, when I read that one, I kind of threw up in my mouth. I'm like, love is about giving everything and expecting nothing? Like, that's literally the mantra of the narcissistic relationship. It's interesting because this one isn't really a proverb. Someone sent this one in. But it's sort of a feel-good quote that often makes the rounds in lots of content and blogs and love-oriented motivational speakers and influencers. It's a commentary, I think, on what is supposed to be the selflessness of love. And sweet heaven above, never have more dangerous words been spoken when it comes to a narcissistic relationship. Now, when I tried to find the source of this quote, I couldn't, because it showed up on so many influencer accounts and new age accounts and relationship writer accounts and isn't love great accounts and feel good places and books and you name it. So I wasn't able to get the source. I kept getting taken to all these dark alleys. So I guess it's a sort of prevailing love wisdom, and that fact actually made my blood chill. Because the idea that love is about giving everything and actually getting nothing other than, I guess, emotional abuse and invalidation in return, that stuff, folks, is the core of the narcissistic relationship. So let's take this quote apart a little bit so we can see just how harmful it really is. I think it's based on the idea that love is, metaphysically speaking, a form of energy, an energy that a person puts out there and doesn't expect that it's really a quid pro quo, but that just the mere act of giving love is its own return. I get it. That's a nice sentiment, right? And many of us, hopefully, have had these experiences at least once in our lives, maybe with a loving family member or a friend or a child, or maybe even, if you're lucky, a partner. And that's fortunate and good, and I'm glad you got it, but it's also a little bit naive. Because healthy relationships, quite frankly, are meant to be reciprocal, back and forth. And while it's not meant to be a linear or numerical, like, I gave you 10 kilograms of love, so now I expect at least 7 kilograms back. What we do not expect is that we give everything and not only get nothing in return, but that we actually would get invalidation, devaluation, manipulation, gaslighting, abuse, and contempt in return. The people who believe this proverb would have us believing that, oh, well, love is about giving, so you just keep on giving and expect nothing. And that's the problem. These sorts of enabling and dangerous proverbs really need disclaimers. I really don't think that the people who wrote or who believe this proverb want people to get hurt. but they're not seeing the full picture. And these sugary rainbows and unicorns proverbs that don't have disclaimers end up hurting the people who are already quite confused. People going through narcissistic relationships are confused, full of self-blame, hurt, and they just want things to get better. So they will take a saying like this and internalize it and think, oh, my mistake was I loved them and I expected something. I should have never done that. I just need to keep giving everything to them and know that nothing is coming back, and then everything will be fine. No, it won't. If I were to write this proverb with a disclaimer, the disclaimer would need to be something like, love may be about giving everything and expecting nothing, but that doesn't mean that you should expect or tolerate abuse. That as long as you are in a situation where there's mutual respect, absence of abuse, and consistent compassion, then sure, go ahead and enjoy this proverb. But to make this a blanket statement, love is giving everything and expecting nothing, which is supposed to apply to all relationships, confuses the hell out of everyone out there who is in a narcissistic relationship, who keeps getting the message to give and give and give and give and expect nothing. And then they sort of conveniently move that part about being abused and invalidated and gaslighted under the part about expecting nothing. The proverb doesn't read as love means giving everything and expecting abuse. And yet, so many people interpret that way. So many people going through narcissistic abuse, that is. And they build it into the complex justifications that keep people stuck in these relationships. Because, hey, love means giving everything and expecting nothing, in which case every narcissistic relationship must seem like a winner. Now, this gets really magnified in the empath dynamic, in which people very much self-identify as empathic and being empathic and being very empathic to others as a fault. And then this damn proverb is their daily mantra. So they keep giving the best of themselves to the least healthy people and expect nothing. Now, over time, this exhausts and destroys the mental health of the empathic person, and it continues to enable the narcissists who just keep giving and giving and giving, and like, ooh, they're realizing, I don't have to give anything in return. Now, people who grew up with narcissistic parents may have been given the message that they should love and respect their parents and shouldn't expect anything more than what they are getting, like a place to live and I guess food. So the idea that the child would expect the parent to be emotionally aware and available to the narcissistic parent, then that means that the child is just being arrogant and demanding and difficult, right? Because the parent's not going to do that. This proverb may have actually been used by adults who are around a child who may have told them that you just need to love your parents and expect nothing, because after all, your parents are feeding you. I mean, feeding you, that's what a farmer does with their pigs and chickens. It's sad when a parental relationship is boiled down to such painfully basic caregiving fundamentals. A way that so many people get stuck in narcissistic relationships is that they read those little relationship sound bites out there that are based on two healthy and very well-intentioned people in a relationship. People in newer relationships may not yet understand narcissism, so they assume that the lovey Instagram post or the love coach's quote of the day is applicable to their complex and invalidating situation and to their own lives. And then when they read this idea about love being giving everything and expecting nothing, may even blame themselves and think, oh, maybe the issues in this relationship are my fault because I expect something. I'm just going to keep giving and expect nothing. And just like the Instagram post said, then that's a real loving relationship. But that's not how a narcissistic relationship works. Honestly, there is some truth in this quote, right? Love is energetic. But the problem is we have so conflated and confused love with romance and sex that we miss the many other forms of love. the love of a friend, the love for other human beings, spiritual love, love for our avocation or our work, love of our pets. This is all love. The type of love that most easily ascribes to the idea of giving everything and expecting nothing is actually parental love, right? We give to our children, and frankly, healthy parents don't expect anything back, just the hopes that our children may grow into happy, self-sufficient, and good people, and sometimes even that hope isn't realized. But overall, I don't really buy this quote. I think love is permission to be our authentic selves, to feel safe, to expect reciprocity. That is love. And if a relationship isn't delivering it, it is not healthy to just keep giving more and more to the point where you've given everything. But in fact, you really need to reassess whether this is actually a healthy space. And if it's not, then stop giving everything and just step away gracefully or set some big-ass boundaries. I am convinced that the person who wrote this, because they're out there somewhere, must have been someone who was a taker and not a giver, and it set up an economy of love that worked for them. For those of you in any kind of narcissistic relationship, ignore this proverb immediately. It is a bad precedent, it sets up dangerous patterns, and is based on something so aspirational that this is not a proverb really built for the actuality of love in the real world. And it's more likely to get people hurt and trapped in an abusive situation than to result in real, sustaining love. I actually once got an angry email from someone who's like, what are you negating Valentine's Day? Are you negating love? What does that mean? We shouldn't have celebrate Mother's Day. I didn't quite follow the reasoning, but I didn't understand quite the anger this person had about Valentine's Day, but perhaps he clearly felt the same way about me, and he absolutely has a right to that opinion. I don't like it. I'm be honest with you. I don't like it. I actually had to go to the grocery store today, and I had to get, I'm making this video before Valentine's Day. I went to the grocery store to get my mom flowers. I know what you're thinking. Oh, come on, Dr. Ramani, you couldn't find a florist. No, I couldn't. And so I got her these flowers. Everything was Valentine's. That red, white, pink, hearts all over everything. And I'm traditionally not with my mom around her birthday, so I wouldn't be buying her flowers. I'd be calling them and delivering them. So everything was expensive. And so I looked at it and I sort of chuckled. I'm like, girl, you're forgetting it's Valentine's Day. And I don't like it. I do not like it. And so let's talk about why from a narcissism perspective. My reasons for not liking narcissism are very personal. And it's just been one of those days. It was sort of sweet when I had little kids because they'd make me little things with hearts and we'd make heart cookies. We probably had a good 7-year run there where I liked Valentine's Day because the kids, and I loved it when I was a child. And I've talked about that in this channel. You get all these little Valentines, and even the kids were mean to me, had to be nice to me and put a little Valentine. I would be so excited to bring them home and I'd make a collage out of them. Those days are done. So I suppose if people sent me Valentines now, I guess I would make them into some sort of collage. But that said, I feel like what happens is that Valentine's Day is it's one of those days I would put on the narcissistic abuse calendar as a definite activator trigger day. So many folks are told on this day, you gotta love big and you gotta love and it's gotta be romantic. And let's face it, somebody who's in a narcissistic relationship, not so romantic, right? It's not likely to be a good day. Either the narcissist is going to attempt to love bomb you on Valentine's Day, which is only going to leave you suspicious for where, I don't know what. So if February 14th is Valentine's Day, then maybe February 28th would be devalue day, which probably put us around mid-March for discard day. And imagine someplace in April would start hoovering day, right? If we wanted to go on that schedule. But I do think that Valentine's Day in some ways can play into that love bomby space. But it can also leave this sort of yearning for people who are in narcissistic relationships for being told, you gotta love, and what they have is not a healthy love. Romantic love is one of the reasons a lot of people get stuck in narcissistic relationships. It's because I got to tell you, the narcissistic folks really have romance wired. They really do. They get it. They know how to do it, because in many ways, how it's wired in our society is very traditionally a very love bomby thing. Now, romance, when done right, isn't love bomby. It's very intentional. It's very mindful. It's very aware. It's very planful. It's a person saying that they cherish and value you enough that they're going to put the time into something and do something that doesn't have to be over the top, that makes them look like this grandiose, wonderful person, but something that might be as simple as, hey, happy Valentine's Day. I came to change all your light bulbs and install some stuff in your house. That would actually be my idea of a Valentine's Day. And then maybe a candlelit dinner. None of that's happening for me this year. So, but that idea of really understanding, because that's what empathy is, really understanding what a person is about and then meeting them at that place. That's not going to happen in a narcissistic relationship. For people who are in their first year out of a narcissistic relationship, so you've ended a relationship some point, either February of 2021 or later, here's your first Valentine's Day. And perhaps, I hope you're still not in a relationship. You know, I'm a big fan of 1 year single after you end a narcissistic relationship. And so here you are on Valentine's Day. And this is a day when people can sometimes be very vulnerable to hoovering. I say this every year. Valentine's Day is it's probably neck and neck with New Year's Eve as a big hoovering day. And then you throw in their birthdays and stuff like that. There's something about it. And if you're a narcissistic person, your former narcissistic person, even if, let's face it, it doesn't matter to them if they're single or not. They may still text you on Valentine's Day. It's a day that sometimes people feel lonely, and it might kick in that they just sort of they want that excitement on Valentine's Day, that might happen on that day. So not good. So all of you got to make sort of like a Dr. Ramani pact. You're not going to fall for Valentine's Day hoovering, because like I said, on February 29th, 28th, not leap year, February 28th, you will be celebrating Devalue Day. For those of you who are going to have a really nice day and you're in a healthy relationship, I actually don't know why you're watching this channel. Maybe it's a parent thing, but great, good. The more people who are having healthy, loving relationships, everyone's a winner. Keeps you being less grumpy, and then the rest of us are all in a happier place with you. But many, many more people often view this as a day of yearning or longing. Remember, Valentine's Day can be all things. It's a commercial holiday, right? But it can be so many different things to so many different people. I've talked about things on this channel, like who are the people who have supported you as you've navigated the waters of narcissistic abuse? Who are the people in your life who are your validators, who see you? Find a way to celebrate them. Maybe send them the silly Valentine's cards, or call them, or have them over, however you want to do it. Take these kinds of days back, the days that kind of fetishize romance and then leave a lot of people feeling like they're sitting out in the cold. And for people in narcissistically abusive relationships to feel like they're yearning, find your supporters and reach out to them. However you do it, a card in the mail, a really sweet text, a really nice email, something to say, thank you. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for being there for me. That's how, now that I'm on top of this Valentine's Day thing here, that's how I'm going to celebrate it. I'm going to contact those people who have had my back. And some folks have really had my back in the last few months. And when I think of it that way, I look forward to it. And I don't look at it as this place that feels empty or lacking romance. Put the romance aside. When healthy love comes, the romance is simply in it being healthy. But let this Valentine's Day, for anyone who's a survivor of narcissistic abuse, be a place where we put the love out for our supporters, because our supporters are the key to our healing. So from me to you, because in your way, through your comments, through your beautiful emails, you support me. So from my heart to yours, I send you a big old hug of adoration. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for supporting me and for being there and supporting this mission of helping people learn about narcissistic abuse.
you're my Valentines this year. Bye-bye.